Trinity is a private school. The private schools are expensive.
Right.
Do people actually pay? I mean, what's the 45,000?
Roughly 45,000, and that's total cost. So that's tuition, room and board. If you add in books and miscellaneous fees, it's about 46, something like that. So and we always talk about that initial sticker shock. When people look at 46,000 a year. What a lot of families don't necessarily realize is the funding that comes on the back end, that would support students either for in terms of merit scholarships or need-based financial aid, or a combination of both. And so the majority of our freshmen coming in, we have about 630 first-year students coming in this fall. The vast majority of them are receiving some kind of a merit scholarship, and so that doesn't include need-based financial aid. Once you put those people in the mix, it's maybe 93% of students here receiving some sort of funding to help defray the cost. And the scholarships alone, I think Trinity is very generous with their merit offerings, and so those range from anywhere from $6,000 per year to full tuition. And but then on the need-based side, families could be looking at Trinity grants. So we have our own set of institutional grants that we can fund families, and then also federally funded grants. Work study might be in the financial aid package, and then the merit scholarships might be in there as well. And then the last thing would be loans, student loans. So there definitely are students and families that are investing in this educational experience, and so the question is, how much loan, am I willing to take out, and what's feasible for a certain family, and in terms of repayment.
That's what we do on our end, is make sure that get in over their head.
Exactly.
And as far as the merit aid goes, is there any kind of a graph or anything that you publish that says if I get this kind of test score, or if I'm at this rank and this test score, that here's how much money I'm going to get, or is that something you do internally?
There's not a graph, mainly because the scholarship model for us is really holistic, and there's a lot of different facets. The biggest piece of our model rests on the student's GPA, combined with how rigorous their classes are. But it also takes into account the high school that they're attending, and the quality of high school, and the competitiveness of the high school. So and that often makes students feel really comforted, because as we all know, 3.5 at this high school can be very different than a 3.5 at this high school. And so the model takes that into account. We also incorporate, obviously, SAT, ACT, probably would be a second to all of that. The student's essay and writing ability factors in. The extracurricular activities factor in. And so, so that makes it hard in terms of trying to predict, where a student falls, just because there's so many other components. What a student can do, though, just to get a general sense, is on our admissions website, there's a net price calculator, that students and families can go in and plug in, their financial information and the academic information, and it's not a surefire. That's the only disclaimer, is that on either end it could fluctuate, but at least it gives a general ballpark of where we think a student might fall, if they're really curious.
Now, just curious, if a student were to come in and say they've got some good GPAs and you're getting them some merit aid, and family's income situation that they're also getting some need-based aid, and the student says, okay, I'm going to go ahead and take it one step further, I'm going to apply for all these little scholarships, and they end up getting, like, say, a Chamber of Commerce scholarship for $1,000. Is any aid going to be taken away because they bring in this other money?
It shouldn't. It should. The practice is to first reduce the loans, and so when our financial aid office goes in and starts taking all these outside scholarships into account, that's their first priority. What I have heard is that in some cases, there's a certain percentage of gift aid, that can't exceed, the the cost of attendance. And so if it gets to, and that hardly ever happens, but if it gets to a situation like that, that's where it might, the outside scholarship might swap out an institutional grant or something like that. But it would never replace a merit scholarship or anything like that. But I would say in the majority of cases, it would most likely reduce the loan.
Now, so it goes towards loans, but what about this family's expected contribution, the EFC? It's not going to count against that. I don't know if I'm saying it right.
Yeah. I can't answer that with complete certainty.
Okay.
So if students have questions about that, the best piece of advice I would say would be to contact a financial aid counselor.
Okay.
And if they're in a situation like that, because every situation is different, is to talk through the packaging with them, and how that might play out.
Very good. Any questions on your side?
I would just like to know, because I was just reading through here too, and it said something about merit scholarships up through full tuition.
Right.
What would a student look like to get full tuition? What scores? What? Because everybody wants,
exactly.
We're waiting for a full tuition somewhere. Yeah.
You might be waiting a little
while.
while.
We never promised that, right?
Exactly.
And everything. But I just wanted to know what would be a typical student's look at
Profile.
Trinity. Profile at Trinity to get a full tuition.
It's a good question. And to be honest, I know for us, and this is just being very candid, we do not offer very many full tuition scholarships at all. And so it is a handful of full tuition scholarships. So as a result, this last year we had about 4,500 applicants, and we're ultimately trying to enroll a first-year class of 630. And so, when you start doing the math and realizing that you're competing against students from all over the country and world, there's some extremely, extremely competitive students in the pool. So, if I were to just kind of ballpark last year, some of the recipients of the full tuition, we're typically looking at, 1,450, 1,500 plus on SAT. These are almost all students that have close to a 4.0 or a 4.0 GPA. They're all taking rigorous classes. And the other thing, if a student comes in that's maybe a 1350, or a 1400 SAT, or maybe not quite a 4.0 student, but if there's something that really, really distinguishes them, there's some other factors that can weigh in. So for us, when we're determining full tuition, it's not always what is your SAT, what's your GPA, it's some of these kind of other variables that really makes the student unique. And so if they have, founded a charity, or an entrepreneur, and they've done something, and created a business, or something outside the norm, that really truly distinguishes them, that's something that can certainly compensate for maybe a slightly lower test score or GPA or something like that. So something that's really compelling, about the student.
Wonderful. Well, I think we may have taken more time than you.
Hey, no problem. No problem.
No, it was very good.
Great to meet you all.
Again, wonderful interview there with Justin. Trinity University here in San Antonio, a beautiful campus. And which may not be your first impression when you come to it from off the highway, because it does sit right on the highway. And at first, when we drove, we thought, ooh, not really, just kind of not pretty right there. But once you step into the heart of the campus, absolutely gorgeous. Did you catch the one part of the interview, though, where he was a little bit of a contradiction in what he was saying? When I asked about what they're looking at to admit students, he was talking about GPAs, class rank, and saying that secondary to that is SATs and ACT scores, and which is good for a small school looking at the holistic view. But then when I asked them what they're looking for in determining full ride scholarships or full tuition scholarships, first thing out of his mouth was a very high SAT ACT score. So do not let that drop in importance. Prepping for the SAT, ACT, vitally important. That's one thing the student has control, at least some control over, as to how much college is going to cost out of pocket there. I don't know if you can hear the beeping going on in the background. There is construction going on here at the campus. They're adding to the science and engineering building, and science is a big portion of what they do here at Trinity. So if it's something you think you might be interested in, I hope this has provided some additional insight. And so if you want to come check it out, we hope we've been able to help you with that. Thank you so much.